Hey guys, it's John here and Forrest with the Bow Real Estate Group, back with your monthly market update. Hope you had a great time over the holidays. Happy New Year to everyone. This month we're going to cover a few topics. We're going to cover the new home flipping tax. We're also going to cover interest rates, kind of where they are, where they're going, and also just a general kind of boots on the ground commentary of what we're seeing out there in the marketplace as of the first 2 weeks of January.
Yes, first 2 weeks of January have gone by very quick. It's hard to believe that it's going to be the 18th already on Saturday. Mm-hmm. I don't know where the time goes personally, but it's quite alarming. Overall, so far, we're seeing some pretty good activity out there in general. We got in our first multiple offers of the year last week, surprising, which was a little bit crazy there. So wasn't fully prepared for it, but definitely some pockets that we've seen some lower inventory are picking up quite a bit. People are starting to be a little bit more aggressive with some things. So it's a good indicator that the market as a whole is kind of picking up steam a little bit.
I think we also have to factor in that it is quite low inventory.
Quite low
right?
inventory,
So people that have to buy are kind of forced to shop with less options, and therefore more people through one particular listing, in general. So that's probably a part of it, but things do feel like they're more positive and more.
Everyone seems a bit more positive with things happening out there, so that's great. So to dive into the new home flipping tax, which came into effect January 1st, essentially the provincial home flipping tax is kind of targeting anyone who's going to be flipping a house in the first 1 to 2 years of buying it. So it's kind of an automatic tax of 20%, which is quite hefty of anybody who sells in the first year. And then from there, it's a bit of a sliding scale over the next 2 years. So it's 10% after.
Over the next year, I think.
Over the next year, 2 years total, falling to 10% after 18 months and 0 after 2 years. So it's kind of an incentive for people to kind of be holding on to these properties a bit longer. And it's kind of a double-edged sword because it's like, I don't see these properties like rapidly increasing in value like we did it during COVID times. It's pretty rare, I think, now that we're going to be buying a house and within 18 months it's going to be worth enough more where people are going to be selling it for a profit as if they were flipping it, right?
I mean, this taxes generally never get taken away.
Yeah,
they tend
once
to
they're in.
So say there is a hot market that you'll probably see this as a bit of a deterrent.
Mm-hmm.
My view on this is we don't really see a lot of flipping anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe 10 years ago that was quite a big thing,
mm-hmm.
But the last kind of 5 years, even during the COVID years, flips weren't really much of a thing.
Yeah, and you see them now too, but they're very evident where it's like they've just taken a BC box and just whitewashed the interior and put a bunch of tacky furnishings inside, and it's a very obvious flip, right? And if they've gotten it at a really good price and they're trying to make a few $100,000, I think there's going to be a bit of incentive for people not to be kind of doing that. They're going to be looking at buying things with maybe longer development potential where they're going to rent it out for a couple of years and then maybe turn it into like a threeplex or a floorplex with the new density rules and stuff like that. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. There are, of course, things that you can get around this tax force. For example, if you were like in a divorce or separation, a job relocation, really bad health reasons, or like financial hardship, there's always going to be ways.
Exceptions you can apply
for. Exceptions you can apply for. I'm sure they're going to give you a huge runaround if you're trying to apply for them, and it's probably going to be long and quite annoying, but there are ways.
I think this is really going to backfire on, like, say, a young family buys a place and simply just, in a rush because they had to or something. Or they relocate here, they buy kind of one of the first few places they see. They kind of move in and maybe they don't like the neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they actually just figure, it's not big enough. What do? We made a big mistake. But hey, if we sell this because we haven't got one of these reasons in the next 2 years, we're going to have some kind of tax to pay.
Or even if they went in and bought something that was in okay shape and they just put some floors in and did enough to increase the value by 50 or 60K, that's already kind of chewed up between their property transfer tax and their commissions on the sale and stuff.
That's the thing about this. So in BC, we have huge friction costs. So you buy a place, you pay like pretty much 2% PTT on the way in, property transfer tax. Real estate commissions run at probably about 3% extra. When you sell, you got lawyer fees, you got inspection costs, and then this is also in addition to any other taxes that remain on flips, like your capital gains, or if you're doing it as a business income plus this tax. So basically, flipping's done. It was about if that 1% of the market, even during the hot markets, maybe it was 2 or 3% of deals were flips. this is basically going to eradicate the entire thing. So no more flips. It's happening in BC. That's it. It's done.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's going to be very economically viable for most people.
There's worse issues to go. I mean, there's bigger problems in our eyes. But hey, flips are done. So there you go.
Nice optic.
So I guess market overall, what are we seeing? We're seeing good activity right out the gate, kind of like we did early last year. We are seeing better rates. Obviously, you can get variables in the mid fours. I think 4.45, which is prime minus 1%, is kind of the current variable rate. Pretty good, considering there's only a 3-month interest penalty on that. If you do cancel it, you can always lock into a fix at any time. We're seeing fixed rates pretty stubbornly hovering around the low to mid fours, depending on whether it's a 5-year or 3-year. And I think moving forward, obviously, there's more cuts coming from the Bank of Canada, most likely, albeit probably smaller ones.
Yeah.
That will bring your variable down to about 4.
Yeah.
But the fixed rates probably aren't going anywhere. They're probably staying around.
Royal Bank is forecasting a 2% policy rate by mid-2025.
But they're an outlier in that.
Yeah.
I think the most of the other
where
banks
they go with that.
Way more conservative. But I think the general consensus is we've got about 2 or 3 more cuts coming in the next kind of 6 months or so. It's going to devalue our currency massively against the dollar because the Fed in the US are basically done cutting. And, so that's another issue. But I think you can expect the variable rate to probably be around the 4%, maybe even high 3s by kind of summer or fall, I would think. But the fixed rates are probably looking at, again, like low 4s at best, maybe 4, maybe high 3s if you're lucky by the end of the year. But so we're kind of around this 4% range, and that's where we're going to lie for the foreseeable future. It's not going to make the market suddenly take off and prices start going up, like 50 grand a month like they were, in 2021. But I think what we're seeing is just a slow release of kind of pent up demand from the last 2 or 3 years of a slow market. So we're starting to see more and more families that have been putting off this move come into this year going, now's the year. Yes, rates are not 6%, they're 4 and a bit. We can now make this move up. It's not so much of a payment shock. Let's do it.
And this, they can much easier. It's much easier to see the end goal with it too. So I think we'll see a lot more of date the rate, marry the house. You know what I mean? So people know that okay, we can get what we want now. The prices are a little bit more repressed. We can get something good, and we just have to kind of get through the next couple of years until the rates come down to make things even more affordable.
Yeah.
Right. So I think we'll see a lot more people making the move preemptively, rather than waiting for the rates to come down, and in turn, they're going to subconsciously be worried about prices going up, even though I don't really see prices jacking up too much.
No, I actually have this theory, kind of the last 10 years, especially in Vancouver, real estate has been completely crazy. It's been groundbreaking. We've had price growth, we've had huge collapses like we did in 2022 when the rate hike started. And we've been through this kind of really wild whirlwind for the last kind of decade, from 2015 to now. My view moving forward, I don't know if you share this, we haven't really spoken about it, but my view is that we're going to enter, the next 10 years will be a market of normalcy. It's going to be normal.
It's balance.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're going to see a market based on much less investment, much more focused on just everyday people buying and selling because they need to move to certain areas or upsize or downsize because of family and kids or whatever, which is kind of all we do anyway, right? That's the 95% of what we do anyway. But I think that's just going to be pretty much it. And
it'll also be very curious to see how the upcoming election and a potentially new conservative government are going to affect just the building regulations in BC in general, because as we all know, a huge part of why we have such a crazy real estate market is it takes a very long time and it's very expensive to get stuff built. And whoever is in power in the government, they're already making changes currently to local municipalities of hitting targets for how many homes they're building, pushing the permits through faster. I noticed this article last week where Burnaby has adopted a catalog of kind of pre-built homes.
Oh, it's a pre-approved.
Yeah, it's a pre-approved building scheme. They've got a catalog of houses that they're kind of pre-approving, so it's kind of easier and faster to push the permit processes through. I think it's a great idea. Personally, I really like to see if they adopted something down the road where they're almost taking a square footprint of a house, and they're as long as you follow this, all the the certifications for building this square footprint with the density of the lot, what kind of products are being used, the airflow, all that kind of stuff in the house, and then they're going to just allow people to kind of build off of that. I think that would be a really cool thing.
I think that's wasn't that what they did back in like the 60s and 70s?
Yeah, like the Sears catalog style stuff.
Yeah, the
Sears
Vancouver
catalog,
special was a pre-approved design. That's why it's so ubiquitous in like East Van, for example.
Yeah.
I'd like to see more streamlining. We'd all like to see it. We'd also like to see less costs associated with developments, because for every house you put up, you've probably got, I don't know, 100 to 200 grand of just cost to the city,
which is passed on to the end user. Right?
Exactly.
So if this whole provincially can become more streamlined, where it's easier to build, faster to build, less costs involved in building, we're going to see that passed down to the end user. So it'll be really excited to see what the next year brings with real estate rules here.
I think this year is going to be a decent year. It's going to be a more normal year, less erratic. I think we're going to see a kind of slow and steady pace throughout the year, probably with some moderate price growth. We've already, I think we're on deal number 3 already this year.
Yeah.
Things are going well.
Things are going well.
We're busy, and we anticipate the rest of the year to be quite busy as well. So, as always, if you guys have any questions, if you is it pertinent to you, if you have any specific questions or more general questions about buying and selling, we'd love to help. And we will update you mid-February. There'll also be a potential rate cut coming, I think, end of this month.
Right,
I think it's the 29th of January, but we'll update you on that as well. But just keep in mind, it will not affect your fixed rate. It will only affect your variable rate. So it's not going to change a whole lot. But we'll talk to you next month, and we'll update you from there. And
thanks again for watching.
Thanks so much.
Bye, guys.